I lost myself loving you. Chapter 1. The first time I saw him, I thought I'd imagined the silver in his eyes. It was just for a second. A trick of the fluorescent hallway lights, I told myself. A reflection off the glass windows. Anything but what it really looked like. But then he looked back at me, and the air shifted. The corridor was crowded with students heading to their next classes, the buzz of chatter and footsteps filling the air. But in that moment, I couldn't hear any of it. My pulse thundered in my ears, and my throat went dry, because his gaze, sharp, steady, unsettlingly calm, was locked directly on me. It wasn't just the intensity of it. It was the knowing. Like he saw straight through me. Like he knew things about me I'd never said aloud. I blinked, the sound of a locker slamming beside me snapping me back to reality. When I looked again, the boy was gone, swallowed into the crowd as if he'd never been there. I should have let it go. I should have laughed it off and kept walking, convincing myself I'd been imagining things after too many late nights studying. But something about the way he looked at me clung stubbornly to my chest, like a thread I couldn't untangle. And I didn't know it then, but that was the first thread in the web that would eventually strangle me. The next time I saw him was 2 days later. I was sitting in the campus cafe, half asleep over a cup of lukewarm coffee and trying to finish an essay. My part-time shift had run late the night before, and my eyes felt like sandpaper as I typed. The cafe buzzed with the usual noise, cups clinking, laughter, the hiss of the espresso machine. Then the atmosphere shifted. It was subtle at first, like the temperature had dipped just slightly, or the sound had dulled at the edges. I looked up instinctively. And there he was, standing in line at the counter, hands in his pockets, gaze lowered like he couldn't care less about the bustle around him. His black hair fell messily across his forehead, his sharp profile illuminated by the warm cafe lights. But it was his presence that struck me most. He didn't move like the others, didn't fidget or glance around or scroll through his phone. He was unervingly still, like the eye of a storm in the middle of chaos. And then his head lifted. His eyes met mine. Silver. Just for a second. My breath caught. I forced myself to look down at my laptop, heat rushing up my neck. But when I dared glance up again, he was no longer at the counter. He was sitting across from me. I jerked slightly, startled. What the? Jaemin. His voice was low, smooth, carrying my name like he'd been holding it for a long time. I froze. He knew my name. Do I know you? I asked carefully, my fingers tightening around my coffee cup. Not yet. His lips quirked faintly, not quite a smile. But you will. I swallowed hard. Okay, that's creepy. Who are you? Adrian. He leaned back in his chair, studying me with unsettling calm. Transfer student. Your class. I blinked. You what? I didn't see you. You don't always notice what's right in front of you. His tone wasn't mocking, but it wasn't gentle either. It was certain. The unease in my chest sharpened. All right, well, Adrian, you should probably know that staring at strangers and randomly knowing their names isn't exactly a great way to make friends. Who said I was trying to make friends? The words landed like a stone in my stomach. My instinct screamed to get up, to walk away. But instead, I stayed frozen in place, caught in the weight of his gaze. And for reasons I couldn't understand, I didn't move. The following days blurred strangely. Adrian was suddenly everywhere. In the classroom, always sitting at the back but watching me like I was the only one there. In the library, leaning against a shelf while I pretended not to notice. Once, even on the subway platform at night, standing just far enough away that I questioned whether he'd been waiting for me. And every time, his eyes caught mine. Every time, I told myself I'd confront him, demand an explanation, tell him to leave me alone. But when I opened my mouth, the words died. But when I opened my mouth, the words died. Because some part of me, small, dangerous, didn't want him to leave me alone. It was late one evening when I finally snapped. I was walking home from my shift at the convenience store, the streets quiet, the glow of neon signs flickering against damp pavement. My backpack was heavy on my shoulders, and exhaustion weighed me down. But I felt it again. That prickling awareness. The certainty of eyes on me. I stopped walking, my heart racing. Adrian, I said into the shadows. I know you're there. Silence. Then a figure stepped out from the mouth of an alley. It was him. Of course it was him. Why? I demanded, my voice harsher than I intended. Why do you keep following me? He stopped a few feet away, the streetlight casting his features half in shadow. Because you shouldn't walk alone at night. My laugh was short, bitter. That's not an answer. His expression didn't change. It's the only one you'll get tonight. I clenched my fists. Look, I don't know what your deal is, but this, whatever this is, it's not normal. You don't just appear everywhere someone goes. You don't, my voice cracked. You don't look at people the way you look at me. Something flickered in his eyes. I told you, he said quietly. Not yet. But you will. The certainty in his tone sent a chill crawling down my spine. I shook my head, forcing a step back. You're insane. Maybe. His lips curved slightly. But so are you, for still standing here. My chest tightened, because he was right. I should have run. I should have screamed. I should have done anything but what I did. Which was stay. Frozen, rooted, waiting for more. That night, lying awake in bed, I couldn't shake his words. You shouldn't walk alone at night. Not yet. But you will. I hated how they echoed in my chest. I hated how they sounded less like warnings and more like promises. And I hated most of all the truth I couldn't admit even to myself. I wanted to see him again. I lost myself loving you. Chapter 2. Sleep didn't come. I tossed and turned, sheets twisting around my legs, staring at the ceiling as shadows from the streetlights spilled through the blinds. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw his face. Adrian. The way he'd stepped from the alley like he'd been waiting for me all along. The certainty in his voice when he said things he had no right to say. You shouldn't walk alone at night. It wasn't just the words, it was how he said them. Like a fact, not advice. Like he knew more than I did about my own life. My chest tightened. I hated that my pulse quickened at the memory. I hated that a stranger's voice lingered louder than my own thoughts. But most of all, I hated that I wanted to see him again. Morning came too soon. The alarm blared, dragging me out of restless half-sleep. My eyes burned as I forced myself upright, groaning. I went through the motions, shower, clothes, instant coffee, but everything felt heavier than usual. On campus, the world buzzed normally. Students hurried across the quad, professors carried stacks of papers, the smell of street food drifted from a vendor at the gate. Nothing unusual. Except him. I felt it before I saw him. That strange shift in the air, like gravity tilted toward one point. And then there he was, leaning against the library steps, hands in his pockets, eyes already on me. My stomach lurched. I told myself to keep walking, to ignore him. Pretend he wasn't there. But my steps faltered. Because his gaze wasn't casual. It wasn't even curious. It was deliberate. Like I was the only reason he'd shown up. I exhaled sharply and marched over. You, I said, harsher than intended. His lips curved faintly. Me. I scowled. You can't just stand around waiting for me like some kind of stalker. I wasn't waiting. His voice was maddeningly calm. I knew you'd come. I blinked, thrown off. That's literally what waiting is. He tilted his head, silver glinting in his eyes again. No. Waiting is uncertain. I don't wait. I know. The words sent a chill through me, though I forced a laugh. You talk like a fortune teller. Should I be paying you for predictions? You couldn't afford it. His tone wasn't arrogant, just factual. Something in my chest tightened. My sarcasm slipped. Then what do you want? His gaze held mine, unflinching. To know how much of yourself you'll give away before you realize you've lost it. The breath left my lungs. What the hell does that mean? I demanded, my voice cracking. You'll understand, he said simply and straightened. Soon. And then, like always, he walked away. No explanation. No goodbye. Just gone, swallowed by the crowd. leaving me standing on the steps with my pulse racing and 1,000 questions burning holes in my chest. The rest of the day blurred. Lectures, notes, the hum of classmates talking, it all faded into background noise. My pen tapped endlessly against my notebook, my thoughts spiraling around a single point. Adrian. Who was he? Why me? How did he know my name before I told him? And what the hell did he mean about losing myself? That night, I stayed late in the library, determined to drown myself in assignments. The quiet helped, rows of books stretching endlessly, the soft hum of fluorescent lights, the occasional shuffle of someone passing by. By 10, the place was almost empty. My eyelids drooped as I scribbled another line of notes. Then I felt it. That shift. I didn't have to look up to know. Do you ever study, or is haunting me your full-time job? I asked flatly, without lifting my head. A low chuckle answered. Smooth. Familiar. You sound tired. I snapped my head up. He was there, sliding into the chair across from me like it belonged to him. His black hair fell carelessly into his eyes, his shirt collar slightly undone, like he just stepped out of a different world and into mine. Because I am tired, I muttered. And you're not helping. He leaned forward slightly, resting his chin on his hand, studying me. Then why don't you walk away? I blinked. What? From me? His voice was quiet, deliberate. You could leave now. You could decide never to see me again. But you won't. My stomach twisted. You're so sure of yourself. I'm sure of you. My throat went dry. I tried to scoff, tried to roll my eyes, but the sound caught in my chest. Because he was right. I wasn't leaving. Not yet. Why me? I whispered, before I could stop myself. His gaze softened, not warm, not kind, but piercing, like the moon cutting through storm clouds. Because you look for something you don't even admit you've lost. I don't. You do. His tone left no room for denial. I clenched my fists under the table. And you think you're what I've been looking for? No, his lips curved faintly. I think I'm what you'll lose yourself to. My chest seized. For a long moment, silence pressed between us. My heartbeat thundered. My lungs fought for air. And then, without another word, he stood. He left me there, alone, surrounded by books, but feeling like the walls were closing in. I didn't sleep again that night. His words echoed louder than any dream. I think I'm what you'll lose yourself to. And the worst part? Some dark, hidden part of me wanted to know what it would feel like. To lose myself. I lost myself loving you. Chapter 3. Strings I Never Saw. I didn't notice the rain until I stepped outside. The sky had cracked open sometime after midnight, and by the time I left the library, the streets were slick, neon lights shimmering against puddles. The damp air clung to my skin, and the steady patter of raindrops against my umbrella should have been soothing. It wasn't, because all I could hear was him. I think I'm what you'll lose yourself to. The words looped in my chest like a song I couldn't turn off, each repetition digging deeper, each echo leaving me raw. I told myself I was being dramatic. He was just a boy. Just a stranger who enjoyed messing with my head. A transfer student who'd somehow learned my name. Nothing more. But even as I repeated it in my mind, the words didn't stick. Because no stranger should be able to carve their way into me this easily. No stranger should feel this inevitable. And Adrian didn't feel like a stranger. He felt like a shadow I'd been dragging behind me my whole life, one I just hadn't turned around to see until now. By the next morning, I was unraveling. I barely tasted breakfast, my classes blurred, and every sudden sound made my head snap up, searching. Searching for him. It was ridiculous. I should have hated him. He unsettled me, stalked me, played games with me. But underneath all of that was something more dangerous. Curiosity. I wanted to know what he'd say next. What he'd do next. What he'd make me feel next. My answer came sooner than expected. It was evening again, the sun bleeding into the horizon, when I found myself at the campus convenience store. I just grabbed an energy drink when the hairs on my neck prickled. I turned. He was standing at the end of the aisle, a can of iced coffee in his hand, his eyes on me like he'd been waiting. Of course. I tightened my grip on the drink. "Do you ever not show up where I am?" He shrugged. "Casual, too casual." "Do you ever not look for me?" My jaw tightened. "I'm not." "Yes, you are." He stepped closer, the faintest curve at the corner of his lips. "Even when you tell yourself you don't want me here, your eyes betray you." I swallowed hard. "You're insane." "Maybe." His gaze held mine. "But I'm not wrong." The silence stretched between us, electric. The fluorescent lights above flickered slightly, buzzing, as though the universe itself couldn't stand the tension. Finally, I exhaled sharply. "What do you want from me, Adrian? Just say it already. Enough with the riddles." For the first time, his expression shifted. Not amusement. Not calm. Something heavier. "I want to see how much of yourself you'll give away before you notice you're empty." My breath hitched. I hated that my chest tightened instead of pushing me to run. I hated that part of me wanted to ask how much he thought I'd give. I hated that I couldn't look away. Later that night, I found myself wandering aimlessly through the streets, the city lights blurring as if I'd stepped outside of time. I didn't want to go home, not with his words still clawing at me. So I walked. Past the neon glow of late-night bars, past the quiet hum of traffic, past the laughter spilling out of karaoke rooms. My legs carried me until I reached the edge of the river. The water shimmered under the moonlight, black and silver, endless. I leaned against the railing, inhaling deeply, trying to steady myself. "Jaemin." I spun around. Of course. Adrian stood a few feet away, hands in his pockets, the city lights painting sharp lines across his face. Something inside me snapped. "Stop it," I said, my voice louder than I intended. "Stop following me, stop showing up everywhere, stop." My chest heaved. "Stop messing with me." He didn't flinch. Didn't move. Just watched me. "I can't," he said finally. My throat tightened. "Why?" His eyes glinted, silver under the moonlight. "Because I told you, you'll lose yourself to me. And I don't walk away from what's already inevitable." I shook my head, the river roaring in my ears. "You don't get to decide that." "I don't need to." His voice dropped, low, steady. "You've already decided for yourself." The air between us buzzed, heavy and thick. My pulse pounded. My lungs burned. And still, I couldn't move. He stepped closer, slow, deliberate, until only a breath of space separated us. His gaze locked on mine, unrelenting, unbearable. "Tell me to leave," he said softly. "Mean it, and I will." The challenge hung in the air. My lips parted, the words trembling on my tongue. "Leave." It would have been so easy. 2 syllables, and this would be over. But they didn't come. Because I didn't want them to. His lips curved faintly, like he could read the silence. "That's what I thought," he murmured. My chest constricted, my breath shaky. "You're dangerous. Only to people who fight what they want." The honesty in his tone undid me more than any lie could. And for the first time, I wondered, terrified, breathless, what would happen if I stopped fighting? The rain began again, sudden and relentless. Water streaked down my face, soaking my clothes, blurring the world around us. But Adrian didn't move. Neither did I. The city lights fractured across the river, silver and gold, and I realized with a jolt that I was no longer sure if I was trembling from the cold or from him. He lifted a hand slowly, deliberately, like giving me every chance to step back. His fingers brushed against my jaw, feather-light, almost reverent. The touch seared through me, and I let him. That night, I lay in bed with the sound of rain echoing in my ears, his touch still burning against my skin. I told myself I hated him, that he was suffocating me, pulling me into something I couldn't control. But underneath the denial was something sharper, something closer to truth. I didn't hate him. I hated myself for wanting more. I lost myself loving you. Chapter 4. I didn't dream. When I finally fell asleep, it was a heavy, dreamless kind of sleep, the kind where I woke up with my body aching, my throat dry, and the taste of rain still lingering in my mouth. But the feeling wasn't gone. His touch lingered like a bruise I couldn't see. All morning, I was restless. My fingers kept brushing against my jaw, against the place his hand had been. It was ridiculous. Skin didn't hold memory like that. Touch didn't stay imprinted. But it did. Somehow. I told myself I was imagining it. That if I just focused on my classes, if I buried myself in normalcy, he would fade into the background. But deep down, I knew the truth. Adrian wasn't someone who faded. He was someone who consumed. By midday, my nerves were frayed. I ducked into the music practice rooms on the far side of campus, desperate for quiet. The walls here were thick, soundproofed, and usually deserted during lunch hour. I sat at the upright piano, pressing random keys just to hear something familiar, something mine. The notes echoed hollowly in the small room, filling the space. But the comfort was short-lived, because I felt it again. That shift in the air. I didn't even bother looking up. "How do you keep finding me?" The door clicked shut behind him, the softest sound, but enough to send my heart racing. "I don't find you." His voice was low, steady. "You call me." I turned sharply. He leaned against the wall, hands in his pockets, as if he belonged in every space I tried to claim as my own. "I didn't," my voice caught. "I didn't call you." "You did." His gaze pinned me in place. "Every time you think of me, every time you want an answer you won't admit out loud, you call me." My chest tightened. "You're insane." He tilted his head slightly. "And yet, here I am." The silence stretched. The piano keys beneath my fingertips blurred. Finally, I exhaled sharply. "Why me? Out of everyone, why me?" His eyes softened, but not with kindness. With something far heavier. "Because you look at the world like it's not enough. Like you're waiting for someone to break the silence inside you." The words punched through me. Because they weren't wrong. I wanted to argue, to laugh it off, to call him dramatic. But I couldn't. Because part of me, the part one tried to bury, had been waiting. And he knew it. "Stop it," I whispered, my voice shaking. "Stop saying things like that." "Why?" He pushed off the wall and crossed the room, slow, deliberate. "Because they're true." I backed up until the piano pressed against me. The cold wood dug into my spine, but I couldn't move. His steps stopped just short of me, close enough that I could see the faint curve of his lips, the impossible silver in his eyes. "Tell me to leave," he murmured. "Mean it this time." I hated him for repeating the challenge. I hated him more for knowing I couldn't. My lips parted, my throat burning. But nothing came out. The silence was my answer. His hand lifted again, brushing my jaw, my cheek, like he was tracing something only he could see. "Do you feel it?" he asked quietly. I swallowed hard. "Feel what?" "The way you're already unraveling." My breath hitched. He leaned in, his voice a whisper against my ear. "The way you've already started to lose yourself." My entire body shivered. And I hated, absolutely hated, that it wasn't from fear. The days that followed blurred strangely. I told myself I'd avoid him. That I'd ignore him if he showed up, that I'd reclaim my own life. But it never worked. Because every time I tried to push him away, something pulled me back. Every time I told myself this is the last time, I ended up searching for him in the crowd, finding his gaze already waiting for mine. It wasn't normal. It wasn't safe. But it was inevitable. And the more I tried to deny it, the deeper I sank. One night, I was walking home late again, rain misting the air. The streets were quiet, slick with reflected neon. He appeared beside me like he'd always been there, his footsteps falling into rhythm with mine. I didn't startle anymore. That scared me most of all. "You shouldn't get used to this," I muttered, my voice low. "Too late," he said simply. We walked in silence for a long time, the city's hum our only witness. Finally, I couldn't take it. "What do you want from me, Adrian?" He didn't answer right away. When he finally spoke, his voice was quieter than I'd ever heard it. "I want to see who you are when there's nothing left to hide behind." My stomach twisted. "And when that happens?" I asked, my voice almost breaking. His gaze slid to me, steady, unflinching. "Then you'll belong to me." The words should have terrified me. But the terrifying part was how much of me already wondered what belonging to him would feel like. That night, lying awake again, I realized something chilling. He wasn't chasing me. I was walking toward him. Every step, every choice, every silence when I should have told him to leave. I was crossing a line I couldn't uncross. And I didn't know if I wanted to stop anymore. I lost myself loving you. Chapter 5. By the time the week ended, I wasn't myself anymore. I laughed at the right moments, answered when professors called on me, nodded when friends asked if I was okay. From the outside, I was the same Jaemin. But inside, I was unraveling. Every thought circled back to him. Every shadow reminded me of his gaze. Every silence filled with his words, echoing like they'd carved themselves into me. "You'll belong to me." I should have hated him for saying it. But the truth, the one I couldn't speak, even in my own head, was that part of me already did. It was Friday night when everything snapped. Campus was loud with weekend energy, students spilling out of bars, music echoing from dorm windows. But I wasn't with them. I was walking, alone, down the quiet back streets near the river. My steps echoed softly, the cool air brushing against my skin. And I felt it again. That shift. That inevitability. I didn't even turn around this time. "Adrian." "You called," his voice answered, smooth as ever. I spun, frustration spilling out of me. "I didn't call you." "I didn't." "Yes, you did." He stepped out of the shadows, silver glinting faintly in his eyes. "Every time you think of me, you call me." My chest heaved. "You're insane." "Maybe." He stopped just a step away, close enough to make my pulse trip over itself. "But so are you, for wanting me here." The words hit harder than I wanted them to. "Why?" My voice cracked. "Why me? Why not someone else?" His gaze was steady, relentless. "Because no one else looks at me the way you do. Like you're terrified and fascinated at once. Like you already know I'll ruin you, and you still can't look away." My stomach dropped. Because he was right. Because I couldn't look away. The air between us crackled, thick, unbearable. I wanted to run. I wanted to stay. And I hated myself for the second option winning. "Tell me the truth," I whispered. "What are you?" His lips curved faintly. "What do you think I am?" "A liar," I spat. "A manipulator. A monster." He leaned in slightly, his breath brushing against my ear. "And yet, you let the monster touch you." My entire body shivered. His words weren't cruel. They weren't mocking. They were just true. And truth was worse than any threat. I shoved him back, my hands trembling. "Stop it. Stop messing with me. Stop." My voice cracked. "Stop making me want this." For the first time, something flickered across his face. Not amusement. Not calm. Something darker. "You think I'm making you want me?" His voice was low, dangerous. "No, Jaemin. That part is all yours." My breath caught. "You've been walking toward me since the moment you saw me," he continued, his gaze sharp enough to cut. "You could have run. You could have told me to leave. But you didn't. You won't. And do you know why?" "Shut up," I whispered, shaking. "Because some part of you, maybe the truest part, has been waiting for me your whole life." The words split me open. Terror, longing, denial, desire, all tangled until I couldn't breathe. And in that moment, I realized something terrifying. He wasn't chasing me. He never had been. I was the one who'd been running to him. The silence between us was unbearable. The city hummed faintly in the distance, the river glimmered under the moonlight, but none of it mattered. Only him. Only me. Only this unbearable pull. And then, before I could think, before I could stop myself, I closed the space between us. My lips crashed against his. It wasn't gentle. It wasn't sweet. It was desperate, furious, broken. And he kissed me back like he'd been waiting for this moment all along. His hands gripped my shoulders, pulling me closer, grounding me and unraveling me all at once. My fingers tangled in his shirt, clutching him like he was the only thing keeping me upright. The world spun. The river roared. And for the first time, I stopped fighting. When we finally pulled apart, my chest was heaving, my lips burning. Adrian's gaze locked on mine, steady, silver glinting faintly under the moonlight. "This is it," he murmured. "The point of no return." I swallowed hard. My voice was barely a whisper. I already crossed it. His lips curved, not into a smile, but into something deeper. "Good." The word sealed it. The thread snapped. And I knew, with terrifying clarity, that I'd lost myself. Completely.